Buluma, given that these largely learning institutions are seen as engines of social mobility, where brains such as you guys here are manufactured. And one of the reasons that had driven you to the streets is the need for good governance and accountability and constitutionalism, which is the reason that you had and which drove you to the streets, and that's the effect of education and the effect it can have on generations. Do you then think, as the CJ holds, Martha Koome, who said yesterday that the current funding model is discriminatory and locks out Kenyans who have qualified for universities?
Thank you, Ayub, for having me here. And it's always a pleasure that Citizen made it possible for young people to amplify their voice every other Friday. And I commend you for that. I think maybe to put context to your question, Ayub, is first of all, let's have an appreciation of where we are coming from. I think we're coming from a situation where at one point it was almost impossible for many Kenyans to access education from the basic level, at the primary level, up until when Kibaki was elected into presidency. And then, first of all, apart from just making education affordable at the primary level, he went on to make it free and accessible. And I think that is a measure that was applauded across the globe as one of the most progressive steps by a government. I think the only thing that we would have done in the other subsequent government was to even make it more affordable and more accessible, as opposed to more frustrating. And Ayub, I think from where I sit, I've been privileged to have interaction with students in their leadership, at their leadership level, and even just generally students. And if I was to pick an appreciation of the pulse of their take in terms of the new funding model, I think government is not in touch. It's not in touch because the assumption that you could base a funding model on the levels of income is not really accurate. Because if you look at generally the cost of living in this country is, first of all, impossible, because many Kenyans are not even able to access the very basics of need, including food, shelter, even just affording life, because the cost of living, the inflation in this country has really gone up. So if you base a funding model around that, first is a misplaced way of doing it, because it just reflects the level of disconnection between government and its people. And then secondly, I think the expectations of many Kenyans was that as we introduce measures of reform, especially in terms of financing education, it should be towards cushioning a majority of Kenyans who really want to access education, but they have not been able from time immemorial. And the best would have been, government should be thinking along the lines of how much are we investing on education and through what channels? Because there are multiple channels from CDF to I don't know what, bursary. Why not harmonize all this? Because I think the thinking of government has been, how do we utilize, how do we finance university education? Kenyans have been giving options after options. And I think the best approach for government, one must be reflective of the reality, because when you're introducing a new funding model, it must be grounded on some sort of analysis of the current state of affairs. The current state of affairs is that many Kenyans are unable to afford education. Many of us, if you've not financed your education, you had to call a village Harambee for you to actually access education. I know of many young people from the rural setup, they have only had a fair shot of life because of just accessing university. There are many examples of leaders, including the president himself, who take pride in the fact that had it not been for that opportunity at the university, they would not be where they are. So I think, Ayub, even as they introduce this funding model, I think the reflection of government must be to cushion Kenyans as much as possible, as opposed to appear like you're exploiting the parents. Because how do you measure the level of income, Ayub? Because they're saying maybe band one would be looking at maybe those parents earning, I don't know, 5,000 or something like that. I don't think that is the attitude that you need. If Kibaki's approach would be that, I think many of us would not actually be where we are today.